My name is Sarah Brady, and if I don't look familiar, it's because we have not been able to meet in person this year because it's been, 2020 and 2021. But I am your son or daughter's AP Human Geography teacher, and I just got some information from the College Board, and you received an email home from Dr. Murphy about some options that you have for testing and what that testing looks like. And I just wanted to make sure that it was clear for you because I know for many of you, it's your first experience with College Board and AP testing. And even if it is not your first time, it's your first time during a pandemic and everything is weird. So I prepared a little something so that we can just have a quick overview of what that looks like. Your child has been taking a year-long course called AP Human Geography, and the entire course we have been preparing to take the AP test. The AP test is offered at the end of the year, and it determines whether or not your child has learned enough or can communicate that they have learned enough to equate to college credit. The testing format looks the same regardless if you're taking that test in person or remotely in the digital format. That is not the same for all AP tests, but it is true for AP Human Geography. The test has two different sections. The first portion of the test is 60 questions in which students have 1 hour to complete that exam. It is half of their total score for the exam. For the second section of the test, it is a free response portion where students receive 3 different questions that have 7 parts, and they have 1 hour and 15 minutes to write their response to those questions, and that is another 50% of the exam. So there are 2 options for our students to take the AP exam this year. Option number 1 is to take it paper and pen, and option number 2 is to take it digitally in the remote setting. So let's go through what are the differences in these 2 different options. The first big difference between these 2 options is the when. For the paper and pen test, it is scheduled to be on May 4th. That's the original date of the AP exam and is the targeted date we've been aiming towards all year long. So students will be prepared to take that exam by May 4th. In the remote setting or the digital option, it is 3 weeks later in the last week of May, which is May 28th, and will be taken at home. When we look at both of these, there's advantages and disadvantages. When I think of the paper and pen option, the biggest advantage is that you're experiencing this test in the traditional setting. So moving forward, as we continue to navigate a post-pandemic world, students will be taking tests in this type of setting. So it really does set them up for success moving forward. Additionally, in the paper and pen version, they get to write on the test, and they can go back and forth between their question options. If they're looking at question 1 and then they get to 15 and then they go back to question 1 and say, oh, you know what, question 15 helps me understand question 1 differently, I'm going to change my answer. You can bop back and forth between those 2 different assessments. When we look at the remote setting, taking it online at home, the advantages are that you get to have a whole month more essentially to review, but that also means you have to be dedicated to doing that independently as well as working towards some review activities in class. You also get to be at home where you're a little bit more comfortable and you can feel relaxed. And you can type your written response, which if you have a handwriting that is hard to decipher, that can be a real advantage. When we think disadvantages for each of those, when we think of the paper in person test, really it's about time. You have less time to review because the test is being taken on that almost a month before the digital version. When thinking about disadvantages for at home, some of the advantages are also disadvantages. Being at home, you can be distracted by siblings or, maybe an unsecure or unstable internet access. So that could be problematic. But also, you cannot toggle between questions. You're going to see question 1, you answer question 1, you move on to question 2. You'll never have the opportunity to go back and review any of your answer choices. Also, that advantage of being able to type your written response could be a disadvantage if you're a poor typer and it takes you a long time to develop your responses in the typing format. So what happens next? What you have to do with your student is to really think about the pros and cons of each of those different choices and make a decision. We have to communicate to administration by March 10th what your decision is. So you're going to make that decision, then you've got to communicate that back to us at school. I will be talking with your students in class and asking them for their decisions, and then they will sign off that that is what they've decided to do. And then we've got to start making a plan for how are we going to prepare to take that AP exam. Really, the traditional timeline is that starting mid-March, this is when we'll begin our review sessions. And so that's when you start making this plan of what is my study time that I'm going to dedicate specifically to AP Human Geography and preparing for that exam. Speaking of review sessions, our review sessions are going to be hosted beginning in mid-March on Wednesdays after school. We've decided that the best avenue to reach the most amount of students is to consistently always have them on Wednesdays after school, but to host them via WebEx. So regardless of if you're in person that day or you're asynchronous at home, all students have the same access to that review session. These are all optional review sessions, so if students can't make it because they have a conflict, that's not an issue, but they can still have access to all of the materials that we will be using in those review sessions. Hopefully this little overview gave you some more information and thoughts on how to come to the best conclusion for your child in regards to what we should do to take that AP exam. I hope you have a great day, and if you would like to ask me any additional questions or are looking for some supports, please don't hesitate to reach out.